This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Emily, host of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come and check out my show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk about nerdy theories, games, TV shows, books, movies, you name it. We're here to talk nerdy to you. A new show comes out every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
And today my tea is cold because we're talking about Matt Lauer, and I feel like out of all of these allegations swinging around, like, everyone's really talking about Matt Lauer, but is there any other time that we do talk about Matt Lauer? Because I feel like newscaster guys just don't really, I don't know, they just don't. But who does care about newscasters is advertisers. Advertisers deeply care about newscasters that they dump millions and millions and millions of dollars into their shows and around the shows to get people to see their things. So Variety broke the story. Let's see, he got fired on Wednesday. NBC fired Matt Lauer on Wednesday. So a couple days prior to that, Variety broke the story about like 3 ladies that, and had more coming out about him doing nasty things to them at work. And the reason why Matt Lauer is different than a Harvey Weinstein, a Louis C.K., a Kevin Spacey, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. But what sets Matt Lauer apart from these other guys in particular is the fact that you have this giant company, NBC, that employs Matt Lauer and has him on the Today Show to the tune of $25 million a year, which is crazy to me that that's how much he's getting paid. But, it's expensive. Working in 30 Rock is expensive. So, and then underneath him is like all of these actual employees, like employees that work every single day employed by NBC Universal. So I'm sure you've heard about the infamous button that he had like underneath his desk so he could lock his door from the inside at his leisure, which you gotta hand it to him. That's pretty slick, but I feel like if you don't want people walking in on what you're doing, should you be doing it at work? Not totally sure. And then sending other lady employees lewd text messages on a company phone? Seriously? Like, are you even trying? The one woman that said that great thing about being a newscaster is you get to go around and go to all of these different events. So one woman said that they were gone to one of the Olympic Games, and he was like, oh, hey, bring me a pillow to my hotel room. So, she brings it up to him, and then icky ensues. But it just makes me wonder, like, what makes you want to do this? Like, what would make you want to be like, this is my chance. I'm a big newscaster. Let me see who I can get to come up to my hotel room, just to see. And then apparently the guy that was this fellow named Zimmerman, who was his booker, who was on the road with him, magically got fired because he was engaged in sexual misconduct. So NBC got rid of him. And then cut to, they finally get rid of Matt Lauer. And this guy Lark, who's a big executive at NBC, says, oh, we had no idea. Only one person has come forward with a complaint in 20 years. Everything's been hunky-dory. Matt Lauer has always been, branded as this, like, squeaky clean dad type of a dude. Which makes me wonder. I wonder if this Zimmerman guy took the fall for him on something that they had going on the road, because after Zimmerman got fired, apparently Matt Lauer's wife started traveling with him when he was off doing big stuff like the Olympics and such. So it makes me wonder if the Zimmerman fellow was actually the one that was doing this sexual misconduct, or if he took the fall for Matt Lauer the first time. Because there's been several people quoted saying that NBC really, really protected him. Which I believe, because when they reported that, when NBC, this guy Lark that works at NBC came out and said, we had no idea. If nobody tells us, if nobody gives us any reports, there's nothing for us to investigate, we have no clue, people would have to come forward. Now we're understanding a power imbalance and how people wouldn't want to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're supposed to be installing a new sexual harassment, preventative education program over at NBC. But that makes me wonder, because years ago, Tina Fey said in an interview that even if you work for NBC Universal for a day, you have to attend this no sexual harassment in the workplace workshop or talk or whatever, and you have to sign a bunch of things saying, I will not sexually harass, other NBC Universal employees. So if Tina Fey said that years ago, that's what they were doing, then either why wasn't that effective, or B, why wasn't it in anyone's contracts that if they didn't adhere to the guidelines and rules that have been set forth for them, that they would be in trouble? It makes me wonder. Oh, other people are live. Don't watch them. No. So that makes me wonder about NBC Universal and what exactly they have going on for a sexual harassment, new employee orientation, because how long they've been doing that? If Matt Lauer's been there for 20 years now? Okay, so maybe it wasn't a thing during his time, or possibly maybe it was. We don't know that specifically. But apparently they're not. He was fired on Wednesday, so he's gotten the axe. And now NBC's saying that they're not going to pay out the rest of his contract because his contract was supposed to run through sometime in 2018. So he's not getting that money. And apparently he's not getting any severance. So I guess he's just out. But if you've been making $25 million a year for X amount of years, I feel like Matt Lauer will be okay. Hi, Greg from the Greg and Dave Show. How are you? Do you have any questions about Matt Lauer? Have you been following the story? Anybody? No? But I was really surprised because I saw the little trickle of the story getting out, ooh, Matt Lauer's been sexually harassing female employees. He invites them into his office and then locks the door from his desk and drops his pants. Very Louis C.K. There's a lot of unwanted pants dropping going on in the entertainment business. And I don't know why. I don't know why someone would be like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get her in my office and I'm going to lock the door and then I'm going to drop my pants. Who? That's your big plan? Do they think past this? Because it seems like they don't. But at the same time, they don't really get reported until someone at a trade will actually run the story. And that's another thing that amazes me. Does it amaze me that, people with these kind of positions abuse them and, do all kinds of disgusting things? No. Not at all shocked about that. The fact that the media runs the story now and people actually talk about it and care, that shocks me. That shocks me deeply. I cannot believe that even, like, I could see if, like, some, other, I don't want to say fringe, but, off the beaten path news source was like, this person's doing this, and they were able to get that ran, yeah, totally. But when places like Variety and Hollywood Reporter and Entertainment Weekly and like these big trade publications are running these stories, it blows my mind, because if we would have done this, even a year or two ago, they wouldn't have done it. Like, I remember sitting around, like, my producer conferences that I go to or what have you, when they were doing the Birth of a Nation. And the woman that Nate Parker allegedly raped in college killed herself finally. She had attempted 2 other times. Third time was a charm, and she finally killed herself while Birth of a Nation was coming out. And I remember somebody bringing it up in my producer conference, which is just literally not even a conference room, like a hotel ballroom full of producers. Like, okay, and network executives and, like, lots of people. Like, okay, so, like, what's going on? Like, what are we supposed to do about this? And everyone was like, ugh. Didn't even acknowledge that this girl is now dead. But was like, oh, gosh, it's just a whisper campaign from a rival studio, before award show season happens. They're trying to knock them out of the race for Oscar season. It'll blow over. People are just trying to, is that the largest deal ever made for a film at Sundance. It sold for the most amount of money ever in the history of Sundance, and, it's picking up steam. I'm sure it's just a rival studio that's just trying to knock it out of the race. And that movie did tank. Don't necessarily know if it was for that reason, but everybody around town, like, literally didn't care. So the fact that any bad publicity is not only being ran, but, like, really severely, like, hunted down by any of these people is really, really amazing to me. And Bryan Singer is another one. Right before one of Bryan Singer's multitude, this was like probably 2 years ago now. Right before Bryan Singer had a big, like, superhero movie, I think it was before X-Men came out. That's what it was. It was before X-Men came out. This guy brought a formal lawsuit against Bryan Singer for molesting him as a child, moving him across state lines for the purposes of sex, all of those sorts of things. And everybody was like, the story came out that he was being sued, but everyone around town's response was like, oh, that guy's nothing. Like, he's just jealous that Bryan Singer has a really big movie coming out and they're just trying to steal his spotlight. And I feel like the rift between even a year ago and what's happening now is just this gigantic divide of terrible things happening in the entertainment industry, as they always have and they probably always will, and no one caring. This is the gap of no one caring. And now all of a sudden all these people are getting fired and their stories are getting ran, and all of this absolute, like, mass hysteria. Like, people are talking about it. I wasn't going to do this show tonight on Matt Lauer. Like, I don't really care what newscasters do. I really don't. Like, is it terrible that he's luring people into his office and locking the door behind them, or into his hotel room, or playing super loud games of marry, date, or kill with other female producers on what they look like, and dropping his pants in front of female staffers and being like, hey, get on it, and they're like, no, and he pitches a fit about it, like, oh, this is your prize, madam, you've won, get to work. And it just doesn't, it's very strange to me. I like it. I like that it's a new trend. I like that it's happening. I like that we're all talking about it. But still, with all of this coming out, this gap between us never caring and all of a sudden now we care is very strange to me. It makes me wonder what's going to be the end piece of this? What's going to be the end cap? But in the meantime, how do we sort out what's true and what's not? And then on top of it, cases like Matt Lauer, that it's an actual big giant corporation with like real employees that get W-2s every year. They work under contracts. They have certain clauses that bar them from this sort of behavior that are just, picking and prodding at people lower on the totem pole than them. That's different. Apparently, neither the New York police or the Long Island police are investigating Matt Lauer for any kind of criminal charges. And from what I can tell, most of it is just a sexual misconduct in the workplace type of a thing, which isn't criminal. Had he exposed himself in his own office in a building, it's not really criminal so long as the person was of age. Had he done it on the street in front of everyone, that would be criminal. But if you're doing, that's kind of the interesting line, is it seems to be that people are being advised, like, okay, here's doing nothing wrong. This is the line of doing nothing wrong. Anything underneath here is cool. Here is the ceiling of criminal. So you can operate and do terrible things that you want to do, but aren't actually criminal within this space. But once you pass this line, once we define what this line is, you go past here, then it's criminal, and then you're actually in trouble. So somehow people are figuring out like what they can do in that icky space of things that you shouldn't be doing but aren't necessarily criminal yet. But NBC said that there might be bringing in an outside investigation team to come in and see and talk to all the employees and see exactly what everybody thinks and feels and has had happen to him. But what made it stick? Oh, hang on, let me read you. Then this news story dress. Oh, totally. Yeah. The bigger issue here is why can't certain men and women just work together and get their job done and go home at night? That's a really good question that I don't know the answer to. I mean, I have worked in all kinds of environments since I was 12, and I've worked with some really, really awesome people, and I've also worked with some really awful people too. People that have since, have gone to jail or gone off into oblivion, who knows? But it just makes you wonder, like, okay, like what is the component here that's, all of this workplace sexual harassment? Like, why can't we walk into work in the morning or in the evening or whenever it is that you work, it doesn't matter, and be like, okay, we're all here to work. Let's be a team and get our jobs done. And I feel like even if you don't find someone your like particular cup of tea, because we all work with people that either we're like, I don't really like this person, or like, oh my God, I can't stand you. That's just part of it. That's just part of work. That's just part of life. It's kind of gross, but you're not going to be madly, in love with everyone, which is fine. But how do we go from outside of work behavior to inside work behavior and everybody knowing what that clear defined line is? And I don't think there's really anything wrong with like seeing someone that you work with and be like, oh, hey, let's go out. But if that person says no, or you've made that person feel weird, then you need to stop. And if HR needs to step in and be like, hey, you need to not do that, heed the warning, and let it go. Just drop it. Just let it go and hope that nobody feels weird around you, or that you become like the workplace, I don't know, what would you call that? The workplace Jezebel, but the other side, the other way around. And that's not cool. Like, that's a really good way to make work messy, is going around and trying to date everybody or trying to sleep with everybody. Bad idea. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. Like, if you wouldn't do it in your group of friends, then don't do it at work. I feel like it's a pretty big common knowledge idea that everyone knows. It's supposed to be your professional environment and your own professional integrity. Like, don't do that. Like, if someone's supposed to be paying you like $1 billion a year, do your job. Like, if I was paying someone any amount of money per year and I find out that they're not working and doing these other terrible things, like, then what do I pay you all this money for? Like, you're supposed to, like, I gave you X amount of dollars. You're supposed to be working every single minute here, okay? Every single minute that you're on the clock, you need to be working and not working on trying to figure out who you can get in your office or who you can get in your hotel room. That's not right. Another woman said that Matt Lauer brought her into the office, again, used his handy dandy little desk button to close the door and lock it. And next thing she knows, he's like forcing himself on her. And then she woke up after being passed out on the floor, and they sent her to she had fainted or something to that effect. And she was like taken away to the hospital or something. Like, oh, she fainted. There's something wrong with her. And it's like, how did she faint? What happened? How did this happen? But yes, Greg, you're right. How we treat women anywhere, including the workplace, has to be the big discussion, and not necessarily just the sexier headline of, rich, powerful man takes advantage of younger, not so powerful lady. Because that's, those are the stories that grab headlines. But at the same time, though, every single day, there are people that work in not sexy jobs, not fun jobs to talk about, that do the same thing. They do the same terrible behavior, but nobody's ever going to print it or talk about it or do anything about it because they're not named people in a story. So clearly that's not going to get ran. Again, it shocks me that this stuff gets ran. It really does. Like, put around so much terrible things in the entertainment industry in general. Fashion and entertainment industry in general. And there's never been a care in the world about what's okay to do, what's not okay to do, and if people do bad stuff, it's like, well, if we lose our big person, then we lose our funding. If we lose our big actor in this film, it's all kaput, and this hundreds of people that have worked on it are all out of a job, and they've wasted all their time because now you have a project that's not going to come out. Or in the Today Show, big, giant companies dump probably, if he's getting paid $25 million, I would say hundreds of millions of dollars into the advertising around this time. And if they lose that, then they lose advertising. They lose advertising, everybody loses a job. So the thinking is either put up with it or don't do anything about it and, keep the money rolling in. And that's kind of how I think that, I'm suspicious. I think that might be how certain people are toppling, kind of in a Brutus Caesar kind of a way of like, okay, these people were tyrants, but they were making money and awards and money and awards and money and awards. And then things start to sag. Well, they've been tyrants this whole time, but if they're not writing big checks and garnering awards and getting all of this, all of these things that we want, they're tyrants and you're not getting what you want, then that's how you end up with a Brutus and a Caesar situation. Like, no, we're going to destroy you because we can. But makes, I don't really believe NBC's, oh, we're going to bring in an investigation team that's a third party, and oh, we're going to bring in a new and improved, a brand spanking new sexual harassment policy workshop, etc. I don't really believe it. And I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. Maybe they'll just install a new person and be like, if you have an issue with sexual harassment, you don't work here anymore. Bye-bye. See you later. Or, on the other hand, maybe all of the people that, saw Matt Lauer get the boot and not get his money and be horribly embarrassed and outed for what he is, maybe he'll take all of the other sexual harassers with him, and all that will be left is hopefully awesome people at NBC, and they will carry on, and they'll have a zero tolerance policy for hurting your fellow employees, whether they be female or male or whatever. It doesn't matter. There's no reason that anybody should be behaving this way. Like, there just isn't. But hopefully the tides are turning. When we were at the Laugh Factory for Thanksgiving, of course comics are super, super topical, but they were doing stand-up about it and being funny about it. But there was a general, and this is a lot of comics in one place. And there was a really fresh feeling in the air about, wow, I need to be careful about this. I need to be careful. I need to think before I talk to people. I need to think before, I touch someone. They might not take it how I want them to. So I feel like the whole town is feeling the I need to think before I do things. I need to think before I say things. And that's really, really awesome. I've worked in entertainment for over 15 years, and I've never felt like people have had that concern at all. And now that it's not even just a little bit of a concern, but now it's kind of a lot of a concern. So to me, that is exciting. I like that at least people are seeing the stories, they're hearing the stories, people are talking about it, and it is time for a change in the entertainment business and every other business. No sexual harassing. But thank you for joining me for #NoFilterFridays on Public House Media. Tomorrow it will be a podcast, so listen to the podcast. It's on iTunes, it's on Google Play. Very exciting. Loves it. And next week I'm going to be in India for the Friday night broadcast, which, because of the time zone difference, will be, for me personally, a Friday morning broadcast. And we will see who's the next sexual harasser to talk about. We will find out. We'll just let the story unfold. This is the show that writes itself. So